talk about the Sri Lankan elections. And Kishnant, okay, says, can you talk about the Sri Lankan elections? Which candidate will be the best for India? So, yes, Sri Lanka's election is coming up, the presidential election. So, let's recap what's happened of late in Sri Lanka. So, Sri Lanka underwent a sovereign debt default in 2022, and as a consequence of that, in the entire financial economic crisis that ensued, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was ousted as the president of Sri Lanka sometime in 22, I think July 2022. And since then, we've had Ranil Wickremesinghe, who's been the president. There was a brief interregnum in between, but Ranil Wickremesinghe is the current incumbent president. Now, the Sri Lankan Election Commission has said that the upcoming presidential election will happen on the 21st of September this year. So today is what? Today is the 15th of September. So less than a week to go for the Sri Lankan presidential election. Now there's a number of candidates and parties who are in the fray in the presidential election. We have the incumbent current president Ranil Wickremesinghe, who strangely enough is running as an independent candidate. I'll not go into the reasons why. So he's running as an independent candidate for president. Then there is the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, who's the son of the former president Rana Singhe Premadasa. So Sajith Premadasa is the opposition leader. He is running for president. Then you have Anura Kumara Dissanayake, who's the leader of the National People's Movement. So he's the third guy. His party has historically and of late been rather critical of India's involvement in Sri Lanka. They have been suspicious of the Chinese involvement in Sri Lanka as well. But Dissanayake recently visited India a few months ago, the first quarter of this year. So it looks like he may be, or his party may be more favorably inclined towards India of late. Then Namal Rajapaksa, the son of the former president Mahinda Rajapaksa, is also standing for election and so on. So that is the deal right now. So now what's happened in Sri Lanka is that Sri Lanka has slipped into poverty in the past 4 5 years. In 2019, about 11% of Sri Lankans were living under the poverty line. Right now, it's almost 25%. Disaster. The economy has backslid very badly. And there are all kinds of issues in Sri Lanka. So, what are the issues that the presidential election, will be fought on? First of all, reduction in corruption. There is apparently tremendous corruption in Sri Lanka. Reduction of the tax burden on middle class working citizens. Well, sounds similar to India, but yeah, apparently they are being taxed heavily, and they would like the tax burden to be reduced. Then the need to ensure the stability of prices of essentials in Sri Lanka, the need to keep inflation steady in Sri Lanka, and then there are other issues like uh, accountability for the economic bankruptcy. So Sri Lanka went bankrupt. It defaulted on its sovereign debt and so on in 2022. So who's going to be accountable for this, and what action is going to be taken about that? That's another issue. Constitutional reforms, economic reforms. Then you had this terrorist attack, 2019 Easter Sunday attack, bombing attack on church and all that. So people want legal action to be taken uh, speedily against the perpetrators or the terrorists who were behind this attack. And there are all kinds of delays, apparently procedural delays. There's lack of transparency. There is allegedly political interference in the matter, all that. So these are some of the issues. That there is the Chinese investment inflows and debt that Sri Lanka owes to China. Many of these projects that the Chinese undertook are non-performing. There is no return on the investment. Hambantota Port is an example. The Mathala Rajapaksa International Airport near Hambantota, the Colombo Lotus Tower. All of these projects have sent Sri Lanka into a debt trap, and they owe this lots of money to China. And all of these things put together sent Sri Lanka into the financial crisis, bankruptcy. And India was the first country to help Sri Lanka. India provided an extended lifeline of more than $4 billion. And India also provided a $1 billion credit line to Sri Lanka to help the country overcome the immediate crisis. So India has been the first responder. India has been doing that, and so that's the background. That's what's happened in brief. So you have three, four candidates. The current president is probably the front runner, and Sajid Premadasa also is one of the major candidates, the Sanayake, etc. So, who's gonna be good for India is the question. I think whoever is willing to cooperate with India, perhaps the Sanayake, he seems to be favorably be inclined towards India. Ranil Wickremesinghe is probably one can regard as a Western, pro-West kind of leader, an IMF guy, perhaps Wickremesinghe. But whoever is willing to work with India, um, and strengthen India Sri Lanka cooperation and so on is gonna be good for India. Right now, I'm not sure if any of these candidates has what it takes to solve all the problems, but the country needs to go forward. So that's the deal right now. Election in less than a week's time. I am not by any means an expert on Sri Lankan politics, but this is what I can give. This is the kind of overview I can offer you, and let's see what happens in 6 days' time in Sri Lanka.